second term in January of 1949 was promising. It included a very ambitious social reform agenda, the Fair Deal. Although much of its legislation was blocked by conservatives in Congress, there were some successes. 1, the Housing Act of 1949, and 2, executive orders to end segregation in the U.S. Armed Forces and to prohibit discrimination in federal government jobs. However, whatever good comes to break down barriers, you can be certain evil pursuits will follow. The beginning of a plot twist in American history unfolds to marginalize Black Americans, to keep them separate from white Americans, and to erase the progress they'd made during Reconstruction. You see, during Reconstruction after World War II, Black Americans took on leadership roles, held public office, and sought legislative changes for equality and the right to vote. In 1868, the 14th Amendment to the Constitution gave Black Americans equal protection under the law. In 1870, the 15th Amendment gave Black American men the right to vote. Effect infuriated white Americans. You mean to tell me some colored former slave will be granted more or less equal playing field? Never. Result, the Jim Crow laws were established in the South. Black people couldn't use the same public facilities as white people, live in many of the same towns, or even attend the same schools. Interracial marriage was illegal, and most Black people couldn't vote because they couldn't pass voter literacy tests. To make matters worse, laws were passed in some states to limit voting rights as well. It is time to make way for a new frontier. The gaslighting begins. Big move, big mistake, U.S. Supreme Court. Southern segregation gained ground in 1896 when the U.S. Supreme Court declared in Plessy versus Ferguson that facilities for Black and white people could be separate but equal. More gaslighting ensues. During World War II, war-related work was booming, but Black Americans didn't get the better paying jobs. They were often even discouraged from joining the military. Sparks fly. Black Americans threatened to march on Washington to demand equal employment rights. Effect, President Franklin D. Roosevelt issued Executive Order 8802 on June 25, 1941. It opened national defense jobs and other government positions for all Americans, regardless of race, creed, color, and national origin. Black men and women served heroically during World War II. The Tuskegee Airmen became the first Black military aviators in the U.S. Army Air Corps, earning over 150 distinguished flying crosses. Not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced. On December 1st, 1955, 42-year-old Rosa Parks found a rear seat on a Montgomery, Alabama bus after a long, hard workday. Gaslighting. Bus driver tells Rosa Parks and 3 other Black individuals to give up their seats at the rear for a white man who has no seating options at the front. No, sir, I will not. Police, handcuffs, jail. It was this monumental incident that marked the beginning of a broader frontier development, a new movement with greater purpose, the civil rights movement in America. Boycott, boycott, we demand equal rights now. For 381 days, we avoided public transportation in Montgomery, Alabama. Montgomery city lines lost 30,000 to 40,000 bus fares each day. The bus company suffered financially from our 7-month-long boycott, and the city became desperate for it to end. When all people in the world love one another, the strong will not overpower the weak. The many will not oppress the few. The wealthy will not mock the poor. The cunning will not deceive the simple, and the honored will not disdain the humble. On November 14th, 1960, Ruby Bridges became the first Black child to desegregate the all-white William Brands Elementary School in New Orleans. Ruby Bridges bravely crossed the threshold of that school into history, initiating the desegregation of New Orleans' public schools. I remember turning the corner and seeing barricades, police officers, and just people everywhere. I thought it was Mardi Gras. I had no idea They were there to keep me out of the school. Don't follow the path. Go where there is no path and start your own trail. On that new trail, filled with courage, strength, and conviction, the only one that can stop you is you. President Lyndon B. Johnson signed the Civil Rights Act of 1964 into law on July 2nd of that same year. Legislation initiated by former President John F. Kennedy before his assassination. On August 23, 1863, the March on Washington, D.C. was organized and attended by civil rights leaders such as A. Philip Randolph, Bayard Rustin, and Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. The peaceful march was attended by over 200,000 people of all races, focused and gathered on civil rights legislation and job equality for all. Dr. King's "I Have a Dream" speech became a symbol of equality and freedom for everyone. The civil rights movement had tragic consequences for two of its leaders. On February 21st, 1965, former Nation of Islam leader Malcolm X was assassinated at a rally. And on April 4th, 1968, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated on his hotel balcony. There are those who are asking the devotees of civil rights, when will you be satisfied? And the answer, we will never be satisfied until all people in this country are created equal. Central High School in Little Rock, Arkansas asked for volunteers from all black high schools to attend their formerly segregated campus. It was then that 9 students, now known as the Little Rock Nine, arrived to begin classes. These students were met by the Arkansas National Guard and a screaming, threatening mob. President Dwight D. Eisenhower intervened and ordered federal troops to escort the Little Rock Nine to and from classes. But they still faced prejudice and harassment. Effects of these 9 children. Spotlight on the much-needed attention to desegregation and fueled protests. If you can't fly, then run. If you can't run, then walk. If you can't walk, then crawl. But whatever you do, you have to keep moving forward. From the powerful words of Dr. Martin Luther King in reverse, I live in a reality where the sons and daughters of former slaves and the sons and daughters of former slave owners are able to sit down together at the tables of brotherhood and sisterhood. I live in a reality where states like Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, and even Texas, once sweltering in the heat of injustice and oppression, are moving toward reforms that bring new hope to freedom and justice for all. I live in a reality where I live in a nation where my 3 siblings and I are judged by the content of our character and not the color of our skin. I live in a reality where in the North and the South, black girls and boys are joining hands with not only white girls and boys, but boys and girls of every nation, of every continent, as we are all brothers and sisters. I live in this reality today. I live in a reality where every valley is exalted. Those of us who have toiled and suffered are rising up, and those who got to the top, stepping on the backs of others, are falling down. I live in this reality today. My rough places are made plain and smooth, and my crooked places are made straight and intentional, and the glory of the Lord is being revealed, and all flesh shall know his name. I live in an integrated society. I attend integrated schools, live in an integrated neighborhood, shop in integrated marketplaces, and am free to love, marry, and pursue happiness regardless of sex, national origin, race, creed, color, religion. The problem we face with integration is the disintegration of Black Americans. One adaptation to be inclusive does not eliminate nor indignify the unity and support that should always be extended to Black America.